Okay, I'm ready. Pumped. Hello. So we're doing a bouquet today. We have a bunch of pretty flowers. We'll kind of show you what we're working with and how to piece it together. Try to make this like quick and simple so it's pretty easy to replicate. I'm going to start off with some orchids. Now these are pretty pricey, so what I'm going to do is, well, what I've already done is trimmed off the bottom stems here, and I'm going to wire them so I can put them in and they'll stay a little bit fresh if I add some wet foam, and I just tape it onto the bottom. So just like that. I get some of my wire and kind of go up through the stem. The reason I like doing that is just to make sure nothing breaks. So I go up as high as I can and then I'll retape and it should be pretty sturdy. So that's that. And then I'll repeat it with these two and then we'll have more. So it'll look like we've used more stems even though it's only one. Okay, we have a few bits of dry product. When you use dry product in the bouquet, just don't put it in water. So make sure you cut them short enough where they just get wrapped with the tape. Where is it? It gets wrapped with the tape and not in the water when you go to deliver it because they bleed like crazy and you don't want it bleeding on a wedding dress. So I always warn my clients too that they've added dried product to theirs and it's all dyed. So like even just touching it, my hands are turning pink. As well as dried Italian ruskets. And on another day, I'm gonna talk about why dried stuff is so expensive and why people think it's cheaper and it's not. So, and then we also have a agonis that we're gonna add. It's a lot easier if you go through and prep everything beforehand. So, just kind of stripping it down. That way when you're wrapping it, you don't have a bunch of these, let's see if you could see it, these little leaves down here. Yeah, so you want it to kind of have enough space to where when you hold it, you don't have any leaves down here where you're gonna have to clean it off later, and it's easier to wrap. It keeps, if you've ever seen a bouquet with like a massive size stems, it's probably because there's more foliage or smaller leaves stuck in there, or they're not wrapping it or twisting it right when they're building it. Okay. The next thing we're gonna use are ranunculus. These guys are so pretty. And then one thing I do that kind of is why our bouquets take a little bit longer. You know, we have these problems. So looking a little sad. So what we do, and this is time consuming, but we wire the sucker. So just kind of jam it up there. Yeah. It's actually pretty easy. So some of them, the stems are mostly hollow and sometimes they'll pop out at the, next to the wire right there is popping out of the joint. So when I go through the joints, I just hold it really carefully and then continue. So once you're able to go all the way up, some of them are too hard and we don't wire those ones. So, but you should be able to get it, I don't know if you could see, all the way up without too much trouble. And this is, I know it's time consuming, but if you don't want breakage and you don't want to see your flower bouquet have like this like one dead or bent flower in all of the professional pictures you get back, you'll do that. So now look, it's straight. Okay, just yeah. All right. Okay, so that's it. And then what we're gonna do is add a little bits of dry product. We also have some, this is more dyed stuff, but filler that we're gonna add into it. And okay, these guys, these are awesome. These are Lysianthus, and they're dyed, so they're amazing. I'll show you how cool they look. Okay, so stems break pretty easily. Look at it, just broke. So you want to prop these up, angle them in right, and not, when you're making the bouquet, not put them at the very edge where it's just gonna bend with the tape. So I'll explain more later. But I like to break mine apart in actual pieces that I'm going to have ready to build my bouquet. It helps the bouquet go faster if everything's prepped, and then you have the right proportion of flowers so they're not all bundled together. I have a few pieces of dried product that I'm going to be using and adding to it if I think it's going to look good at the end. Yeah, let's see, and some of these fun little guys. Okay, so these might look fun, we'll see. And okay, let's go. All right. Okay, so foliage first. Can always put some of the filler in there as well, just so you have it as a base, so when you put your flowers in, they don't fall. I like to start with the bigger flowers first, and then move on to my smaller blooms so they don't get crushed. I do stick in through the center and kind of twist and find where I want my biggest flower to be. So this is obviously the star of the show. So we're gonna put it in the front. I didn't get roses this time because I need a break. Me and roses need a break. So, so I didn't do roses today. Okay. Okay. One of the other reasons that I create the bouquet in this shape is because I do sometimes, most of the time, I do like it flatter on the back side, because when I see brides hold their bouquet up to here, I just don't like it. So I like it to where our brides can hold it right close to them. So that's what we're doing. So now we're just gonna layer these in to get closer. Putting it together now. And then don't worry if things move, we can always shift it, especially once you tape it, it will move again, so don't stress about that. I like to get some of the pretty clusters together, put them up high, and then don't really worry about it looking off right now either. Nothing looks good till it's done. And sometimes if it doesn't look good, you just keep going. Just keep going till it looks good. So things that are ugly are sometimes just not finished. Okay. Okay, and then again, start to layer some pieces in the back. And again, when you're putting these in, make sure the stems are not in like a compromising position to where they bend. Do not want that. Okay, now we have some of our wire ones that will stick up a little bit taller. These ones, because it is on a wire, one option you can do is you can actually take another stem, wire it to that stem after you tape it up with a little bit of cotton so it stays hydrated. And that way has a little bit more of a stronger support to it instead of just the wire, because the wires, because they're so small, can move more. Okay, so we've got one in there, and that way it's just not all orchids off on one side. And then here's the other one. Now, another thing to note is, people know these are part of like a cluster and a long stem, so you don't want one like sticking out all by its lonesome where it completely looks really obvious. We still want to have like a really high design with still a natural feel, so like the integrity of like the type of flower is still kept pretty true. And I usually pick a side to be like my most dramatic side. So this side is obviously my most dramatic side. And then it's just about rounding it out. So we have this good little guy right there. So I think what I'll do is kind of pair it, tuck it right in here. Here you go. And then it looks like they're together still. Sometimes when I do these, I'm like, oh my gosh, it looks so pretty already, I want to stop. But we're gonna keep going. Okay. And this is why you prep these beforehand. Okay. Now we're not going to finish it this way because we still have another color to put in it. So okay, now here's the one that we had pre-wired. So usually the ones I pre-wire I put as the more vulnerable positions, which would be off to the side, and then you can bend it. So I bend it so it has a little bit more of a natural feel. You would never know it's wired. Looks natural, and it will stay in place, and it will not fall apart. I stick them through, so you don't have to do it in order because this is how we get our shape. The ranunculus I like to stick out a little bit further. And if you're doing like one pop color, you can always have this be like one-sided floral side. I mean, have it be where we're just putting the white off to one side and kind of cluster it together over there. So that looks kind of fun. Okay. If your hand gets tired, what you can do is wrap it, and then you can go again. You just have to make sure when you're starting it over again and adding more flowers to it after you've wrapped it, you're going to want to make sure that you're still crossing them, so that way the stems don't break. So you don't want it to bend. Okay. So this is it so far. Probably should have done black. So we have our dried fern. We're gonna layer in here. Again, only in where you're wrapping it. So one thing you don't want to do is have your focal points fighting. So you don't want like a Sputnik arrangement or a bouquet where this piece is going here, this one's going here, another one's going here. So we're gonna follow along the lines of this one flower that we started with to have be our point that sticks up. And then if you don't like it and want to turn it, twist it a bit, you can always pull the flower out and reposition. You just gotta get a good grip. And then that way it kind of falls in line a little bit better. So this is kind of what you should have at the end when you're done. And the idea is that after you're done making it, hold it and make sure that when your bride holds it, it feels balanced. So it's not like tipping over. The time that will happen the most is when you have protea. The protea gets so top heavy and then you cut the stems too short and it feels like it's gonna fall over. So just make sure it feels right and then you'll know how short to cut the stems. Okay, so then you just have to pick out your ribbon. Because I have white, I don't want to have a stark white just because I think it'll match too much. So I have more of like this ivory, beigey off-white kind of color. And we're just gonna wrap it and then let it hang down long. So.